worst bugs in the game, which is like when you make an edit or like build something, it'll just fling you off.
Welcome to the winner's circle, your Fortnite World Champion, Booga!
It is Wednesday, May 20th, 2020. My name is Jordan. I go by 1UP Analytics. My co-host is Taylor, aka Somebody's Gun, and this is the Boomer Talk podcast. I'm recording just miles away from the site of the 2019 Fortnite World Cup in New York, New York. And Taylor is just miles away from the Epic Games headquarters in Raleigh, North Carolina. On today's podcast, we talk about upcoming changes to aim assist on PC and how much mentality plays a role in the controller playstyle in the current meta. We talk about the future of competitive Fortnite and a new bug that allows you to take cones and roofs 100% of the time. We also talk about who would win in a 3v3 box fight between Midas, Tina, and Sky versus Brutus, Meowscles, and Deadpool. All that and more on today's podcast. Hey Taylor, how's it going today?
Hey, good bro. How you doing?
I'm good. So to start off the podcast, I think the one thing that's on everybody's mind is the email that came out yesterday from Epic about aim assist and PC controller having some adjustments in the near future. So if people don't know what I'm talking about, Epic has started recently to send out emails to everybody with a supported creator code. And they're basically just like an informal type of patch notes with little bullet points about any updates and tweaks to the game that are coming in the upcoming patch. And last night, they sent out an email, and one of the bullet points in it was titled, "Next Week PC Controller Adjustments." And I'm just going to quote the email here. "Controller tweaking, tuning, and investigation continues. We have some changes for next steps, but we don't want to release right before the FNCS Invitational Finals." So that was the email that came out. Taylor, what are your thoughts on that?
So I think this is great. I would temper expectations because I don't think they're going to make huge changes to it. While I may be wrong, I think anyone that follows competitive Fortnite knows how broken aim assist is right now, especially because if you jump in a box with someone, it's hard to miss. Not is it hard to shoot someone, it's hard to miss if you're on controller. And even so, if you have decent aim, you can hit multiple headshots in a row, especially with the SMG. So it's good to see Epic kind of continuing that back and forth. I know there's not too much of a back and forth, but from their recent communications, it does see that they're listening and trying to hear what's going on within the community and then act accordingly. So good news, hopefully, but again, temper expectations.
Yeah, and I don't want to have too much of a discussion about, whether aim assist is overpowered or not. I think there's already so many people putting out their opinions about that in the community right now, and there's just a lot of kind of drama around it. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is a few things, actually. So first, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter after that news came out last night talking about how, the second that gets changed, every single controller player is going to be irrelevant. None of them are ever going to place again. They're all terrible. And I want to temper expectations there. There were a lot of people saying these exact same things a few weeks ago when Epic put out an update that was basically supposed to make PC aim assist the same as 60 frames aim assist or like console aim assist. And everybody thought that was going to be, the death of controller players, as the end of aim assist as it is. And the next day, the update came out, and aim assist felt literally exactly the same. So I do want to kind of put that out there. Like, let's wait and see what really happens here. It's coming out next week, so we'll see. And as the email says, it's targeted towards controller on PC specifically. So this is not, or at least doesn't seem like it's going to be like an aim assist nerf across all platforms. So I'm kind of interested to see how they managed to do that. It's clear that they tried to do that already a few weeks ago, and I don't think it worked out the way that they wanted it to. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work. But yeah, definitely temper your expectations and really just wait to see how it turns out.
Oh yeah, and to anyone that thinks controller players can't play without aim assist, I mean, one, you're wrong. Like it'll take some time to figure it out, but the best controller players will still be really good at this game. Like a lot of what makes them good is not simply aim assist. We saw players like Unknown doing well before even the aim assist debate was a thing. You know, like my man created the W key meta on controller. So I do think that regardless of what the change is, they're not going to totally eliminate controllers from competitive play. I think that's the direction they've shown they wanted to go because it caters to a larger base. But we'll see.
Yeah. And a few things I wanted to talk about related to this topic as well is first the fact that, or I guess like it's my opinion that the strength of aim assist and the strength of controller isn't fully about just the aim assist. And we've talked about this off the podcast before, but there's definitely like a mentality component to how powerful controller is at the moment and like in the current meta. There's a certain confidence that controller players have right now to be able to just, they see somebody in a box and they just want to get in because they have the confidence that they're going to hit every single shot. And to some extent, like that is a real thing. Like they probably will hit more shots than a keyboard mouse player. But there are also other scenarios where keyboard and mouse players could hit every shot as well in like a close quarter combat, engagement. So how much do you think like that confidence, that mentality is a part of how powerful a controller is right now?
I'd say it's a big piece. I wouldn't say it's everything. A player that I would say plays with controller confidence on keyboard and mouse is Benji Fishy. He's not afraid to hop in a box because he's so confident in his abilities to grab pieces, to hit shots. So he does things that you would expect of someone on controller. And you said this to me when we were talking about this off the pod, about how controller players were essentially emboldened by the keyboard and mouse community because everyone's telling them how good aim assist is. So then they created this monster, right? I just think that's an interesting way to think about it. Essentially, if no one really talks about aim assist, does this become as big of a problem? Likely, yes, there's going to be some people who figure it out, but not everyone catches on to the meta as quickly if it's not thrown in their face.
Yeah, I think that's such a funny like concept that the outrage that's kind of happened on Twitter and other things has kind of fed into the phenomenon that we're seeing right now. Like, there are definitely a ton of controller players who had not been, relying on SMGs or even really using SMGs. I know personally, I'm a controller player. Obviously, I'm not that good at the game. I'm not, placing top in every single tournament or anything like that. But I know personally, like, I have never really relied or even used SMGs all that much. But now, since there's been all this outrage, all these, clips constantly about controller players hitting all these shots and boxes and stuff like that. I know that like personally, I've begun to work SMGs into my loadout more and more because I definitely just feel more confident using it, and I feel more confident getting into people's boxes with it. So all of this kind of outrage that's happened regarding aim assist, in my opinion, has definitely fed into it, which is really funny to me.
No doubt, my man, no doubt. But hopefully, we get an even balance because even someone that plays controller, like a lot of the top controller players are just so fed up with this because they were good before this and now you just have it literally takes no skill. I could give my dad a controller who doesn't play this game, doesn't play video games whatsoever, and tell him to push forward stick and just run at a player and then press the right trigger, and he could probably get a couple kills. Not in a competitive format, but like that's how easy it is to get a kill if you have somewhat of an understanding of what to do with aim assist.
Yeah, you're definitely right too. Like the top players, like CRR, even like Epic Well, unknown sometimes. Like these guys are all talking about nerfing some aspects of aim assist, like especially the close range SMG stuff that's going on. Um, and that's really interesting to see because like they definitely benefit from it, but the best controller players have so much more to their skill and who they are as a player that it doesn't make them right. So if you take out this kind of broken quality of close range, linear and expo, these players are still going to be really high performing players. And I think part of the reason that's happening right now is just the meta in general. There at least last season there were traps where, if someone psychoed into your box, you could trap them. Like there were ways to protect yourself against people psychoing into your box. Now this season there are no traps. They added back miniguns. They added the drum gun. All these different things, and we're in a meta that really gives an advantage to players who take 50-50s and try to get into your box no matter what. We have heavy snipers now as well to like break down walls. And of course we have other things that have been in the game for a while, like phasing through walls, and stuff like that. So like how much of the problem do you think can be explained by the weapons that are in the game right now, the meta right now?
I'd say SMGs and the drum gun are probably the biggest issues with it. I mean, still you can hop in someone's box with an AR and kill them, but the SMG just shreds people. And I mean, there's only one drum gun on the map, so it's not that big of a deal. But again, if you find the right person who knows how to use it, he can show how broken it is. And then if we go ahead and look at the heavy sniper, that allows people to get into boxes without even really trying. Like you don't have to break a wall or take the time to give someone a second to react. Like you can just quickly heavy snipe a wall and boom, you're in someone's boxes. So the combination of those three, the SMG, drum gun, and heavy snipe, I think have exacerbated the issue of aim assist. And I think we could kind of get away with this current state of aim assist without SMGs. But I'm interested to see how they handle it. And one thing I just want to say is don't hate on the players using this mechanic in game because they did well. Like hate Epic if anyone or anything that you're going to show hate to. I wouldn't recommend throwing hate or anything towards Epic, but they're the ones that put this in the game that created this issue. Players are simply using the tools at hand. So just wanted to throw that out there too.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the hate is kind of misplaced right now. Both, you know, towards players versus towards Epic. Obviously, if you're gonna hate on anybody, I think obviously it should be going towards Epic. But I also think it's a bit misplaced in terms of some of the hate should realistically be going towards the meta right now and the weapons that are in the game right now. Like I see so many clips where it's just like showing somebody with a gold AUG hitting a triple dink, and then it's blaming it completely on aim assist. And like, listen, obviously aim assist, the recoil is better on controller than it is on mouse and keyboard, and there are advantages in terms of tracking a little bit with aim assist, but somebody hitting a triple dink with an AUG is more luck than anything else, realistically, and also just due to the fact that the AUG is kind of ridiculous in terms of how it is as a gun. It's extremely powerful. If you hit a headshot on somebody and you get good bloom on the next two shots, that's a triple dink right there, right? So like, some of the hate is a bit misplaced. I think we should be talking a lot more about like how broken the drum gun is, how broken the minigun is, and stuff like that. And obviously, a discussion needs to be had about aim assist, and like that discussion is continuously going on in the Fortnite community. But we need to talk more about the meta right now and the weapons, in addition to that.
Fair enough. Is that where you want this conversation to go?
I mean, no. I mean, like, I think I've said my part on it already. Like, those are my thoughts on it. Like, I think a lot of these clips that we're seeing right now, that are just intended to solely blame aim assist, should also be blaming the meta in the game and like different other aspects of the game, like the fact that you could just phase through builds consistently. But I mean, those are my thoughts on that.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
We can stop there.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about aim assist because I know it's like already talked about constantly in the community. So I don't want to feed into the feud more than that. I just wanted to kind of give like a logical perspective on what's going on right now. But let's talk about the future of competitive Fortnite. This weekend we have the final weekend of the Solo Invitational, FNCS Solo Invitational. That will be pretty exciting to watch. We're gonna have a reboot round, which will be interesting. Only 20 players from each region will qualify for grand finals through that, and then we'll have the grand finals round, which is just 100 players from each region. But after that, that's basically it for this season of competitive Fortnite, and we have the next season. I think starts June 4th or June 3rd, some day in the first week of June. So where do you think competitive Fortnite's going in terms of like the format, the game mode, stuff like that?
So the only thing we know right now is there's gonna be another FNCS next season. That's about where our knowledge ends. What that format may be, we don't know. People are speculating trios. Apparently there was a squad test event thrown out there. Again, don't even know if that's real because this is Fortnite.
Yeah.
I honestly, huge fan of team modes. I would prefer a team mode, whether it be trios or squads. I just think it adds so many different layers, so much more to the game than even duos or solos, obviously. But we'll see where it goes. I'm hoping we stay something along these lines with the solo FNCS. We saw them play a little bit with the format. I think it'll, again, have to be tweaked when we change the game modes. But the format isn't perfect. I'm a big fan of having to do customs to qualify for any kind of grand finals, or like a final stage would be customs. I like to see that. So hopefully they'll implement that in the next one. But where are you thinking we're headed?
So like my thinking on this is there's always kind of this trade-off in terms of the game mode where like the fewer players that you have on a team, so like solos for example, is kind of like the easiest to it's like the easiest to market, it's the easiest to spectate because you're just you're watching one player and you're watching his journey through the beginning of the game to the end of the game. It's like super easy to watch. It's fun to watch, especially if you have certain players that are like your favorite players and stuff like that. But in terms of how fun it is to play, like personally, I can't play solos anymore. I find it awful. Like I need to play team modes, and I know that there are a lot of players in the community that feel the same way about solos. And there's also like there's something to be said about the like strategy that goes into team modes, like duos, trios, squads, whatever it is. It adds a layer of complexity to the game that's really cool to watch. But the bigger the teams get, so for example, if you have squads as competitive Fortnite, it's honestly a little bit more difficult to watch. Like you have to follow 4 players on the team that you're following as opposed to one. And when you're talking about like mid game engagements, even like end game rotations, stuff like that, these things are like kind of hard to track as a spectator. So like if you're showing the game to somebody for the first time and they have to track what 4 different players on a team are doing and there's 4 different perspectives and stuff like that, it's a little bit difficult to follow as opposed to smaller team modes like solos or duos. So there's definitely like this trade-off where the bigger the team is, it's like it adds more complexity, it adds more depth to the game, which is really cool, but it's a little bit harder to follow. So that's something like I think Epic has to consider. I think duos and trios kind of get the best of both worlds there because it's easier to follow than squads, but it's a little bit more complex than solos is. So I would personally like to see duos or trios. But yeah.
I do have to slightly disagree with you. Like, I understand for someone new trying to follow the game, it's going to be easier to follow like a solo as opposed to a team. But I don't necessarily think it's really easy to follow competitive Fortnite as is. Like, trying to follow 100 solo stories going on at once is impossible. Trying to follow 25 of them at once, if we were to play squads, is somewhat more doable. Like you can keep track of a squad in the entirety of the game, whereas people get lost within solos. If you're not a big name or you're not having a pop off or a win, you're not going to you're irrelevant essentially. Whereas there could be fights off spawn where someone's winning this fight consistently and the team that's losing, you could potentially talk about them, what adjustments they could make, whereas you're not going to be able to do that for, the 20 other players, let's say, that die off spawn in solos. And I think you just have to take a little bit more of a wide angle, a different kind of a viewing experience. You can't do the gameplay view like we get in solos. And all it takes is a little bit different of a perspective to follow squad fights. I do think they're possible. Some of the tools at hand limit us for that. So I would agree with the tools at hand. It's better to watch solos, but given some upgrades in the replay and spectator system, I think we could watch squads very easily.
Yeah, and from that perspective, I definitely agree. It's a lot easier to follow the overarching storyline of like a squad versus 100 different solos. So from that perspective, I definitely agree. And there's also kind of the aspect of RNG that comes into play. Like squads, in my opinion, is a lot less RNG based than solos is. You know, if you're a solo and you get headshot heavy sniped, you know, that's game over for you. But if you're in a squad and one of the players gets headshot heavy sniped, you still have three other players to continue on with the game. So with a bigger team mode, it's going to be a lot less RNG based, and you'll probably tend to see these like overarching storylines more pronounced. Like you'll see the top teams on the top fairly consistently, whereas in solos that definitely does happen. Like you still have the best player, like Benji Fishy is on top of EU week in
The
week
GOAT.
out. Yeah, legitimately, and but at the same time, like there is a lot more RNG that goes into solos, and further down the leaderboard, you see that coming into effect, a lot more than it may happen in squads. So, in terms of storylines, I definitely agree. Like a bigger team mode is preferable. I was more talking about like the actual spectating of an individual game. I think it's a lot easier to follow smaller team modes, but yeah, you're definitely right. Like in terms of storylines, squads is a great mode. So there's a trade off there, and it kind of depends what Epic wants to prioritize. It seems that in general they are starting to prioritize broadcast more than they have in the past. For this recent solo FNCS Invitational, we have broadcast back with Bala and Shayo and the whole team. So this is something that they're definitely beginning to focus on more, and this is a decision that they're going to have to make. But yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll ever see an end to solos. I think those will remain a staple in comp Fortnite. But I'm just hoping, at least for this next FNCS, we get a team mode.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think solos will ever go away. It's just kind of the mainstay of any battle royale. But another thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the future is the future of console competitive Fortnite. So for Duo FNCS this past season, console had a separate prize pool and like a separate tournament completely from PC. And there were a lot of mixed reactions to that. Some people liked it, especially like console players obviously love that, because they didn't have to get dunked on by PC players constantly. PC players, I know a lot of them didn't like it because it took away from the overall prize pool for them. And in their minds, they're the best competitors in Fortnite, so they should have the lion's share of the prize pool. But honestly, like, well, first of all, like I think in the upcoming FNCS for next season, like I don't think we're going to see anything different. I think we're going to have separate prize pools again, and the reason that I think this is because I think that Epic wants to do everything that they can to kind of keep the console competitive community intact. Whatever that community is right now, it might be bigger, it might be smaller than the PC community, but they want to try to keep as many of those players within competitive Fortnite as possible. Because what's going to be happening soon is we have the next gen consoles coming out, and the next gen consoles are going to be running 120 frames per second. So in the pretty near future, we're going to have a situation where console players are going to be able to compete on a pretty even level with PC players in terms of like how their systems perform. And so like as a result, they should be able to perform on a competitive level with PC players, right? So there is a near future where console and PC, the difference between them in terms of the system specs are going to be fairly similar. And Epic in my opinion, probably wants to keep as many of those players around so that they get to that point, and then they could kind of merge the prize pools at that point. And so it would make sense that they would have a separate prize pool for the next FNCS for console to kind of keep those guys around.
I definitely think that makes sense. And part of me's torn on this. Like, part of me hates this, and the other part of me loves it. Right? I absolutely hate that essentially people competing on lesser quality systems, lesser games. Like, I watched the console FNCS. It was nowhere near as skilled and high quality as PC. And from that, like a competitive, strictly competitive sense, like I hate that the prize pools are the same. But then, I got to take a step back. Okay, relax. There's a bigger picture. It's not simply about competitive. Everything Epic does has a bigger picture to it. Okay, got it. What we've seen now is a rise of people competing in these tournaments. So console is a huge chunk of these new players. Yep. And just players in general playing the game. So getting them involved in competitive Fortnite is awesome. It is freaking awesome, because those are the ways that you can continue to build the competitive community, help build different systems, and keep this game going for longer. Because I know both of us, while we may not like it at sometimes, like, we love this game. So to keep it going, keep the success prolonged, we're seeing that. So, I'm torn on this, but generally I'm okay with it. And I think we'll probably see complaints, even if they get like some prize pool. Like, people will be like, "Oh, they're stealing our money on console." But you got to look at the longer term picture. I think it's super healthy for the longer term future, and that's the way I have to tell myself not to get upset about it.
Yeah, and like the fact is that there are more players on console than there are on PC, and as a result, they are like contributing to the prize pool more than PC players are. Like, if we assume that most of the prize pool is coming from things like V-Buck purchases and stuff like that, most of that money is coming from console players, whether we like it or not. Like, PC players are far and away the top tier, the cream of the crop of competitive Fortnite. Like, it's not even close, not even worth discussing. I tweeted something out today about the number of players in NA East remaining that came from console FNCS. There are 9 remaining of the 80, the 80 total players remaining in NAE FNCS solo. 9 of them came from the auto qual from console, and I'm pretty sure all 9 of them are now playing on PC. So it's not even like it's not even that relevant that they came from the console FNCS, because they're now playing on PC. But yeah, like, it's very obvious that PC is the top tier of competitive Fortnite. But like, we do have to accept the fact that there are more console players in general. There are more console players in competitive Fortnite. I guess like that term competitive Fortnite is a little bit loose, but like, if you look at cash cups, there are more console players than there are PC players. And there are more console players contributing to the prize pool in terms of, buying in-game purchases and stuff like that. So we have to kind of accept that. Hopefully, when the next gen consoles come out, it kind of bridges that gap in terms of, the system specs, and we could merge the prize pools, because that would be awesome. That would be like the best possible scenario, because we would be keeping the player pool in terms of how big it is, but we'd be merging the prize pools. So like, the top players would be getting the most money. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. And yeah, so the last topic I wanted to talk about today is a little bit of a finding that came out on Twitter this morning. I woke up today and went on Twitter and saw that people had discovered, or I guess people had discovered a while ago, but people are now talking about the fact that there are some exploits that you could do in terms of roof taking and like cone taking and floor taking, where if you look due north while you're taking somebody's roof, taking someone's cone, you'll get it 100% of the time. I haven't personally tested this in game. I don't think you have either, but I've seen it from like a bunch of different sources, like pretty reputable sources. So I have no reason to believe that it's fake. Um, uh, but yeah, that seems to be like a pretty, I don't want to call it like a game breaking exploit, but like pretty close to it now that everybody knows about it.
Yeah, I can't believe it's honestly taken this long based on what I've seen and how long certain people have known that it was in the game. I want to say it was Benji tweeted out that this has been in the game for like almost 6 months. Granted, he's someone on zero ping, so it doesn't necessarily matter if he's looking north or not to take a wall. I don't know. I also have no idea. Like, I don't know how coding works. It's not my background or experience. But how the hell does that work? Like, it just blows my mind some of the things that happen in this game, and like trying to logically think how that becomes the issue or like that becomes an exploit. I have no idea.
Yeah, I was trying to think through it earlier today as well. Like, I do have a background in computer science. I studied CS in college, but I don't have any experience with game design. And obviously, like, games are pretty complex programs. There's so many different things that are interacting with each other. So it's hard for me to like try to explain how that could happen. Um, and yeah, I legitimately could not think of like a way that could have come to be accidentally. It's definitely possible, but like I'm also considering the possibility that like they did that purposely because they couldn't figure out a way to make coin flip wall taking work perfectly. Like I don't, like I'm just speculating here. I'm not gonna say like, you know, I have a ton of game development experience and like that's what it seems to be the case. I'm just speculating. I'm just like throwing this out there. Like, is it possible that they decided to throw this like wonky logic in their game to slap a band-aid on a problem that people have been complaining about for a really long time? I gotta be honest, I feel like that is a possibility. Yeah.
Well, and you have to think about those clips of someone trying to take a wall for like 30 seconds, just like sitting there pickaxing, trying to take the wall, sitting there pickaxing. Like, is that person looking south and the other person looking north? And that's why that's happening. Like, there's so many videos that are popping into my mind that people have tweeted. And I'm just like, whoa,
Yeah.
maybe like that is what's been behind this the whole time. And I want to go back and find them. I don't know that I will, but I'm now going to look at clips differently and maybe go back through some FNCS games a little bit and see if I can find those pieces.
Yeah. And it's really funny because thinking back to when they had announced that there was this new like coin flip mechanic in the game, people were testing this constantly. Like they were going into creative and just like testing it for like hours or whatever it is, and like I remember people having these experiences where like they would go on a run where like they would just take someone's cone like one after another, just over and over and over and over and over, and then like they would like run like a different test and like then they wouldn't be able to grab it for like minutes, like they're constantly doing it and they wouldn't be able to grab it over and over and over. And like now I'm thinking about that and it's very possible this person was just looking north one time and then looking south another time. Like that's honestly ridiculous. But yeah, like like it just the one thing that popped into my mind was just that it does feel like in the past Epic has tried to just kind of like slap band-aids on problems that were like pretty clear to the community, and the wall taking, like the piece taking, was a problem for a really long time, where like people would complain about zero ping just being OP, and it was, and it's possible that they just kind of slapped a band-aid on it by throwing in that like weird logic into the program. But yeah, I don't know.
What's crazy to me is that we all know right hand peaks are like the meta in this game because of the third person. Now is being on the south side of a fight like the meta. Like you're just gonna have people battling to try and get south side during a box fight so that they can take the wall, and then someone takes the wall, they hop behind them over and then try and take the south side again. Like I'm just interested now that information's out there, how long this is gonna last and how people use it, because I doubt they're gonna be able to make changes to this before this weekend. And that's definitely something I'm going to be looking forward to, or not forward, but looking for in the FNCS Grand Finals for solos.
Yeah, and there were even like people on Twitter talking about how like certain players have known this for a while, and so in box fights they would always take the south side of the box fight map, and then so like they were always kind of attacking towards the north, right? And they would be able to just take people's pieces 100% of the time.
Jeez.
So yeah, there were people talking about how there are probably players who have known this and have scammed people out of hundreds or thousands of dollars, who didn't know about this exploit.
Jeez.
And yeah, it's pretty rough. And I was thinking about what you were just talking about, like taking, like, you know, is taking the south side of fights now the meta? I was thinking, like, is it like slightly more advantageous now to like drop on southern parts of the map, where like, you know, if a zone pulls north, like you're going to be moving north, and so if you do happen to get into a fight with somebody, you know that like you're going to be attacking from the north. Like obviously like you could reorient yourself no matter, you know, where you're coming from and stuff like that. But like, I don't know, I think it's kind of funny like to think about how that could play into like advantages from, you know, how you're approaching a fight and stuff like that.
Dude, 100%. Like when you're positioning yourself in late game, take south side of zone. If this is 100% true, which we're assuming it is for this discussion, it's the best idea to get as far south in the zone as you can, because then every fight you take, you're going to have that north side advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I'm curious to see if they try to change this up by FNCS this weekend. It feels like they have to, right? Like,
well, did they even know this was an issue until today? And then like how quickly? Because I would assume that this isn't a quick fix. This is like a deep in the code kind of issue that they would have to go back, and if they might change one thing, who knows what else it could cause some issues with. And I don't think they have enough time to test things before Friday or Saturday, you know?
Yeah, it would definitely be difficult. But as it stands, like that's a weird kind of mechanic to be in the game during, you know, a championship series that has like hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. But yeah, do you have anything else you want to say about this topic?
No. I know technically in the rules, using exploits is not a bannable offense because we don't know what is banned and what's like other punishments. But I don't know. Say someone does like always go south side. How do you prove that they're using this exploit, unless like they're obviously, like we talked about earlier, in a fight, and just every time that they get in a box fight, they're pushing to get south side to take that north side position or wall take.
Yeah, it's so hard to. It'd be so hard to prove that.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's something they should just fix, and I don't think players should necessarily get punished for using it unless it's quite obvious. I just think that in this game, it's really hard to prove some of the exploits and issues that we've seen.
Yeah, and it's also like it's hard to really punish people for using like bugs in the game that are just or like exploits in the game that are just in the game because of the way that you program the game, right? Like we see people using phasing tricks all the time, and that's not something that's ever punished, and I don't think it necessarily should be punished either. Like that's just part of the game. So like this is kind of another example of that. It's like it'd be like a really weird gray area and a really weird thing to punish somebody for, especially if you haven't explicitly come out and say, like as Epic, you haven't like come out and say like if you use this, it's it's cheating in some way, and
Well,
it would even be hard to say that like is it cheating to like try to take someone's cone from the south side like ever like when is it okay to do it? Like are you allowed to do it when you're coming from the south side naturally? Is it not okay when you're coming from the north side and you go to the other side of the person's box? Like it's such a weird thing to try to even like punish or anything like that can never really happen.
yeah, well, and I liken it to when everyone was using that llama glider. Like everyone knew that was broken because the animation gave you such an advantage, and I don't believe anyone got punished for using that llama glider. So how are you going to punish people for using like a south side exploit kind of thing?
Yeah, it wouldn't really be possible to do it. Um, but yeah, that kind of wraps up the three topics we want to cover today. Before we wrap it up, actually, I have three questions that rapid fire questions that I want to get your thoughts on.
Oh boy.
All right, so the first one is who do you think the best player in the world is right now?
Hate this question. Next question.
Oh, I mean, you already kind of like answered it earlier in the podcast, though.
Yeah, but like regions don't play one another. Someone could be the best at solos, but not the best in a team mode. Like, yes, Benji is one of the best and like has been for a while, but you could argue like Saf or Zayd are also the best, or even someone like Booga was at the top for a while, still has been performing pretty well. Like, I don't want to get into that. You could talk about kids on West or someone dominating Brazil or OCE, and how are you going to give more weight over one region, even though they've never played one another? So that this is not a game where you can just like say this one person is the best. I hate this in basketball too. Like, oh yeah, the best person ever is Michael Jordan. Yes, he may be, but how would you know when he's never played against LeBron? I guess he played against Kobe a little bit, but then there's guys like Kareem and other people well before him that could also have a claim for that title.
Fair enough.
Sorry to like blow up your question.
Thanks for being fun. Thanks for being fun.
Um,
All right. The second question is, if you had to vault one item and then unvault another item, like for a trade, what would you vault? What would you unvault?
can I throw mythic weapons all into one?
Sure. Kind of a cop out answer, but okay, that's fine.
All right, fine. I'll pick one. It's gonna be the drum gun.
Okay.
Get the drum gun out of the game. And then, does it have to be a weapon?
No, just any item in general.
Uh, not the crash pads we see, but bounce pads. I want those back.
Bounce pads. Okay. That's interesting. Personally, I would say I would vault the. I'd vault the minigun, just the minigun in general, because there's like a ton of miniguns on the map. And there's only one drum gun. And then I would unvault. I'd unvault the Deagle. I just love the Deagle.
Yeah, I did love the Deagle too. That's a good answer. Good answer.
Thank you. And not the wall breaking Deagle. It's like the post
Oh.
nerf Deagle.
Oh, we can't have two items that take walls. Come on.
And then the final question is, in a 3v3 box fight, who would win? Midas, Tina, and Sky, or Brutus, Meowscles, and Deadpool?
All right. So let's think about this. This is going to be drum gun, boombo, and
And the
Scar
fast Scar, yeah.
versus minigun, the pew pew rifle or the AK, and the pistols.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some bad experiences using the boombo in close range recently, so I'm going to say that's useless and it's essentially a 2-on-3. And you kind of have the jacked guys on Brutus and Meowsicles, plus you have Deadpool. So I'd have to give it to Brutus, Meowsicles, and Deadpool because Brutus just sprays the whole time. Meowsicles hits some headshots because those bots have sick aim. And then Deadpool's Deadpool. And he can hit shots and revive himself, which is kind of sick.
Interesting. So I tweeted this out today, and right now there's 250 votes on it. 87% of people say Midas, Tina, Sky would win.
See,
So you went the opposite.
I voted for that initially, but now that I'm thinking about it, a 2-on-3 is such a you have three capable people in a fight, whereas if you're on team Tina, she's not really going to be helpful to you.
Yeah, I agree. Tina's just a black hole there, kind of. Unless you could figure out a way to get some sort of mid-range fight in a box fight, she's gonna be anything. I guess she could suicide herself, where she gets into a box and just boombos herself, but also anybody else in the box. That could possibly work. But,
yeah, that's the strat. Is you give them a kill by dealing some damage to them.
But in my mind, Midas and Brutus are kind of it's kind of like a trade-off there. They're neither they have their strengths and their weaknesses a little bit, but I think those kind of even out. And then it's basically Sky versus Meowscles and Deadpool. That's so tough though. I guess I would have to give it to Meowscles and Deadpool because you just have
Let's go.
the player advantage, right?
Yeah, let's go.
So yeah, I guess.
And they all have aim assist, so
yeah, they all have aim assist. So yeah, but anyway, that wraps up the first episode of the podcast. Taylor, do you want to tell people where to find you?
Yes, sir. So Somebody's Gun on all platforms: Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. Lots of educational content, VOD reviews, that kind of stuff. And then on my Twitter, if you're trying to find out who won the latest event, you can always find that on my Twitter as well.
There we go. Yeah.
Thanks for the show, bro. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, no problem. If you want to find me, I'm OneUp Analytics on Twitter. And that's kind of my only platform right now. Soon to be Twitch, same thing, OneUp Analytics. And I guess YouTube too. I guess I'm posting this on YouTube. So yeah, OneUp Analytics on YouTube. So Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, follow those things. If you like stats and analytical content, stuff like that. But otherwise, yeah, it's been a great first episode. Thanks for being here. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, see you, bro. I'm definitely looking forward to this. Thanks for having me, and I hope to be on soon.